Hi, I'm Milla, and welcome to another Milla's Game Room video. This video is going to be a more unscripted, off-the-cuff recording for my top 10 announcements from the recent E3 and Anime Expo announcement season from early June till early July. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I've got a bunch of titles here, from mainstream Nintendo stuff to some visual novels and of course some JRPGs too. And not just ports, but some all new titles. So let's jump straight into it. I'm going to start with The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This is coming out later this year. It's an experimental 2D Zelda title where you literally, well, play as Zelda. Link is out of the picture, he gets swallowed by darkness in typical Kingdom Hearts style. And so Zelda, instead of wielding a sword, has to go out there and use objects and place them to move around instead, alongside, I'm guessing, various other experimental ideas yet to be announced, which I really like the look of this new take on the Zelda series. Thanks to the Switch being such a successful console, we've got developers for both Nintendo and other companies too, able to take risks and start putting together some of these more quirky, niche, experimental titles. And I'm really glad, because the Switch install base means that even if this game doesn't sell particularly well or isn't even very good, there will still be a sizable amount of people that will appreciate it for what it is. I know that the whole Zelda's not wielding a sword thing is quite divisive, and I can kind of see why, but I'm not too fussed about it. I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Also, it seems to be developed by Grezzo, who also worked on the Link's Awakening remake, so that bodes well. Next title is Phantasian Neo Dimension. This is the latest RPG developed by Mistwalker. It was originally an Apple Arcade exclusive title, and it was the Achilles heel from this game, from what I've heard, where even though the game is so good, because it was exclusive to Apple Arcade for the longest time, pretty much nobody wanted to play it. Now, from what I can tell and read online, it seems Apple helped fund the development, which is why it was exclusive to Apple Arcade for so long, which makes a lot of sense. If you're a small developer, it makes perfect sense to take that money and put it on that platform, even if you know no one's going to buy it. It's the same reason why people took advantage of Epic Games offers to put their games on their store exclusively for money. Like, it makes sense if you're a small company, and whether it's Mistwalker or an indie dev. But now it's coming to pretty much all major platforms later this year, with Square Enix of all companies managing development. There's already a bunch of extensive interviews online about how that came to be and how their relationship between Sakaguchi and Square Enix is seemingly healed. So there's a lot to look forward to there, and I'll be checking this one out. The visuals are also made with stop motion pictures. Is it stop motion? No, it's realistic models from real life that were then taken and rendered into the game, which is really cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this works in person. I will hopefully play this day one, especially if it gets a physical release. Starting with the first of a handful of visual novels in this video is Utakata no Uchronia. This is a brand new otome game release that only came out back in April of 2024, and it was developed by Lycobits, which is a subsidiary of Broccoli, who also worked on Jack Gian. Now, interestingly enough, this was one of the best-selling otome games of recent years. In its launch week, it even unthroned Princess Peach Showtime, and that's how good this game was and how hyped it was, especially given the pedigree of some of the people behind it. For example, the illustrator Riri, who illustrated the Piafore games, and Yonohana Spring also worked on this one, just to give one example. This one appears to be a plot gay, as it's set in the flying city of Itahari. You play as Hinagiku, a noble lady from a distinguished family who longs for the world beyond the floating city. And Hinagiku encounters an amnesiac man named Yashiro, and now she's been dragged into various other events that reveal the truth of the city. And I'm really looking forward to this one. I know some people who played the game, a lot of the players, they loved it. There was a minority of people that found it to be a bit boring as well. But given the overall huge quality of this game, I am very much looking forward to getting into this one when it comes out in 2025. This one is a Switch exclusive. I'm really glad that Axes are working with other companies as well, because alongside Utakata with Broccoli, they're also working with D3 Publisher to localize Despera drops for next spring. So that's really exciting, and I'm so glad to see them branching out to other companies at last. And that Jack Gian was not a one-off. Very pleased. Next title I want to talk about is Rose Gun's Days. This is a classic Ryukishi 07 visual novel that he'd written many years ago, back in 2011, 2012 or so, And this was developed by his company's 7th expansion and was originally and still is exclusive to PC. This title takes place in an alternate history Japan where a natural disaster forced Japan to capitulate to Sino-American forces near the end of World War II. There are multiple gang conflicts, including star with a war veteran and a proprietress of a brothel. Yep, this one looks to be quite a both rough and engrossing experience, and I'm really interested. Now, this one had a manga localized for many years. The original Rose Guns Days release was actually on Manga Gamer's store back in the day, which is really interesting in terms of the history right there, considering it was not in English. This particular release will be split in 4 parts and put out on Steam and Manga Gamer with upscaled assets. So this one is a PC exclusive title. Like pretty much all of Ryo Kishi's works are exclusive to PC in English, minus fan translations. I'm optimistic this will come out. Now, Manga Gamer really don't do much anymore, so I am hopeful that they will start picking up more titles like this in the future and not just rants or really gameplay heavy porn stuff, which is like, yeah, it sells, but it doesn't really drive the medium forward. So yeah, I'm hoping this one comes out in a fairly reasonable manner. So let's looking forward to Rose Guns Days. And of course, moving on to a much more different game to the kind of things you normally see on this list, and that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, originally when I saw this, I wasn't too sure what to make of it because it was in the Xbox showcase, and the realistic visuals and overall AAA blockbusterness of a lot of the games on show meant that when this was shown, I just wasn't fully paying attention. I just it didn't look too engaging, but then it was only later that I read more about the game that turns out the developers themselves aren't massive fans of Japanese RPGs and took a lot of inspiration from them, and the gameplay is turn-based, and it could potentially be, I wouldn't say as iconic as Baldur's Gate 3, but in terms of being a big Western developed RPG that's turn-based and inspired by Japanese titles, it could be a similarly big hit in that regard. And I know a lot of my content creator friends online have talked about the game and said how very excited for it, and that's helped me look at this game again, give it another chance, and see that, you know, this is actually a title that I could really click with. I'm interested in seeing this one. This is for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. I will of course be playing this on Steam Deck because I'm not getting a PS5 or a Series, which that's going to be a hot take for a future video. Please look forward to that. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I really hope my hype and trust is not misplaced with this one. Now I'm going to touch on one of, well, 3 leaks by this same developer in a week, and that is of course Nihon Falcom. Starting with Trails Through Daybreak 2, which was formally announced at NICE's panel. This is a direct sequel to Trails Through Daybreak. Unlike that game, it's not standalone, so you do ideally need to play, you need to obviously play Daybreak at the very least, but there are references to other games. I'm really looking forward to seeing Nadia and Swin return. They appeared in Reverie, but obviously not the first Daybreak, but I'm really glad to see them back, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this game drives the series forward, because this game, from what I've read online, has a slightly divisive reception because it's seen as a filler title because they couldn't get East 10 out, and so regardless of whether it's filler and a couple of other things I'm not going to go into here because I believe they're spoilers, so I'm really looking forward to this one. So even if this is one of the weaker Trails games, I think it's going to be an interesting game on its own merits, and I'm looking forward to that. Also very glad that it's been slated for early 2025, and given that the localization staff for Daybreak 1 range from former Geofront staff to even Cape Ferga, the team that worked on Sky SC before they had to drop it because it was very hard for them, hedging it a bit because it's a bit too triggering to just drop in this video, and the fact that they're all back on Daybreak 1, they're most likely back on Daybreak 2, and potentially Kaino Kazeki as well. I believe Kaino Kazeki will be late 2025, because the release dates are getting closer and closer together, and it's clear that NICE are prioritising Falcom stuff, so please keep prioritising Falcom stuff, NICE. I really want to see this stuff. But also, please don't neglect your own titles by NIS. We haven't had any of those announced for a very long time. Even stuff that would actually probably do well here, like Zeatris and Barstellar Abyss, or even some of the visual novels like Furaki 4, and which are the more copium stuff on my list. But yeah, this isn't about NICE, this is about Falcom. Moving on to the second Falcom leak, there's a Kaino Kazeki trailer 2, which is Japanese, so that's not relevant to Anime Expo, but this was for East Memoir, The Oath of Felghana, which Xseed leaked by accident. I actually put a tweet about it on Twitter, and it somewhat blew up. So I meant mega viral for talking about a leak. So, yay, I guess? Regardless, the game itself is an enhanced port of Ys Ddiothin Fel Gana, which is the third game, which originally came out in 2005. This remake did. The original versions were much older, but in many ways this is the definitive version of the game. Fel Gana is the game where you visit Dogi's hometown and you encounter a bunch of people there, including antagonist Chester and his sister, who is shocked at why Chester's gone down the path he has, and you have to explore this vibrant world, with it building on the engine and gameplay from the Arcanopishtim, which is the 6th Ys game, which is not available on modern consoles either, like 7. So I played a bit of the PSP version a while back, and I really did like it, but because it was on my hacked Vita, unfortunately, I lost access to it when my card had problems. So I'm just going to play this re-release now, and it looks to be really cool. It's currently slated for early 2025 on the Switch, PS4 and PS5, Switch and PS5 in the US again, a limited edition, which I will hopefully look into picking up. PS4 version's digital only, but that's honestly fine. It's time to move on from the PS4, and I know a lot of people still don't like that, but it's time to move on. I get why people still want it. I'm glad it's coming, but this is going to be the norm for PS4 games going forward. Going back to the world of otome games now, I have got 2 of the 3 otome announcements I want to touch on a bit. And the first one is probably my most anticipated title that's already out, and that's Temirana, the Lucky Princess and the Tragic Knights, also known as Sui Sui, which came out in April 2023. So this one is announced for 2025 on the Switch in the West. And this title is developed by Ichi Column, which is a subsidiary of Idea Factory that we've not actually had their games localized in English before, and they've developed quite a few, including Hana Yaka Nari Waga Ichizoku, and a bunch of other titles which I cannot remember off the top of my head. This is quite a long game that's set in a fantasy world. In this game you play Cecilia, and you have to go around and explore this world with a deep storyline, featuring political intrigue with romance and drama, which all things I like. And Cecilia has to go around and balance her expectations as a princess with her relationships to her royal guard, who are the 5 guys you can romance. And she also has magical powers as well. It's going to be a really cool little game, and I am looking forward to checking this one out. And I'm just glad we're getting a new developer, Ichi Column. Although, obviously, there are some staff from Idea Factory working on it, like Utah and Milla, who worked on Charade Maniacs, so it's going to be really interesting to see what a different developer's take is like. I can't wait. The next title is one of Axie's announced, and that's Mistonia no Kibo, The Lost Light. Of all of Otomate's newest projects, this was the one I was most hyped for, so I'm really glad to see Axie's pick this one up so soon, even before the Japanese release, because in Japan it's due to come out later in July, so the fact that this has been picked up so early is really encouraging. So this title is set in a place called Grand Alvium, a kingdom thriving under the rule of a fairy queen, in an era where light and shadow coexist. It's another fantasy epic, so yeah, you can tell I love fantasy epics, and I also love heroines with unusual names. The heroine in this game is called Applause, and this is a story set on revenge, so she's actually infiltrated a mansion where she works there, trying to find a potential target for her vengeance. So this story looks to be a bit darker than your usual otome flair in terms of these light-hearted worlds. So maybe not quite as dark as Black Wolf Saga, but definitely dark in its own way. And I'm looking forward to checking this one out. This is also a Switch exclusive for 2025. So yeah, I can't wait. I really hope this one lives up to my high expectations. Final title on my top 10 main list is the Dragon Quest Heroes 1-2-3 Remake Trilogy. So after 3 years, we finally got more news on the Erdrick Trilogy remake, and Dragon Quest III, all platforms later this year. It looks absolutely stunning and beautiful. I can't wait to check it out. And Square Enix also formally confirmed that Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are coming in 2025 for the same platforms. So interestingly enough, even though 1 and 2 came first in terms of their release, chronologically Dragon Quest 3 comes before both those games, so we can play them in story order. And also, as 1 and 2 are the shorter games in the series, I know 2 in particular is a bit flawed, kind of like Final Fantasy 2 in that it's considered the weakest of the entire series for most people, and I really hope this remake really increases their quality, makes them even better than they already were, so we can go out and really appreciate these classic RPGs. Dragon Quest has been on a huge resurgence in the West in recent years, especially now Square Enix are finally reliably localizing the games, so yes please, I'm so glad we're getting these, and especially in Europe where until the Switch ports came outside of Japan, we didn't get them. Like, not even the Game Boy Color releases, they came to America but not in Europe, so now we're getting a full version that's much better than these phone ports, and I'm really confident saying that because the footage is just, yeah, it's even better. Final thing I want to touch on before wrapping up this video are some honorable mentions. First one is Kingdom Hearts on Steam. That was announced and then was released last month. I've already played through Kingdom Hearts 3 and I've had a great time. They run so well. These games are gonna shine and they're amazing on Steam Deck, amazing on Steam, and I'm so glad they're finally on PC. Yes, they've been on Epic for a few years, but people just don't buy from Epic, so it was de facto Japanese exclusive, kind of like Dungeon Travelers from Aqua Plus as well. Another Shadow Dropped remaster that came to Steam was Batten Kaitos 1 and 2. Please go play those games, they're amazing. I did a video on Batten Kaitos 1 when it came to Switch last year. Please play them, they're great. I need to get around to Origins and play that. I still have that planned for later this year. I don't know when I will do it though. I'm just currently juggling stuff, but you know, I still need to finish Untold, so... Next one is Elmer & Taro's Wanderings, coming west on the 16th of August. Now, this one wasn't announced at any of the events, it was just Red Art Games casually dropping it. Now, this one is developed by Hakama, who worked on Refactory 4 Special, which I really enjoyed. And given that this title had really good reception last year when it came out in Japan under the name Rear Sekai, means I have a lot of optimism for this one, and I hope at the very least it turns out to be an enjoyable experience. And I'm really glad to see what the team at Hakama can get up to. Also want to give a shout out to some of the other visual novel announcements. Battlefield Waltz, which is the first Legacy otome game to come west in English, so this was originally a Vita game called Senju no Waltz. This one was not high on my localization wish list, so it's not on the main video as a top 10, but I'm really glad to see it, and I really hope this means that Idea Factory and Axis and potentially other companies too will go back and bring the legacy stuff over. Nil Admirari, Clock Zero, literally anything else is on Switch, I want to see it, or at least kind of address why they haven't brought over many of the older titles that aren't fan discs. I really hope we see more, because otome have a rich history, and we need more of them in English, especially because the Asian region are getting them all now, so please, more in the West. Virtually Evermore fan disc was also dated for the 7th of November, I'm looking forward to that as well. And also 7 Scarlet Switch port was confirmed for spring 2025, which I fully expected Axis to license this one because, well, it's easy money. And 7 Scarlet is one of the few Vita otome games that's still not available on any other platform excluding PC until this announcement. So that just leaves Bad Apple Wars and Period Cube, which Period Cube probably won't ever happen. But Bad Apple Wars I really think should happen because it's a really underappreciated game. One of these days I should probably do a video on that actually. That's going to do it for my little list here. Let me know what your favourite announcements were from the last couple of months for the announcement season. There were so many good games that were announced, both localizations and remakes of old stuff, as well as all new titles which show a lot of potential. And as you can see, I have quite a variety of taste for games, and even though I won't play all these titles straight away, I do hope to eventually play everything I've mentioned in this video, or at least have them in my collection. Yeah, curated collecting means picking up all these amazing games that you know you're going to want to play for many different reasons. So I'll stop rambling now. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. Consider becoming a channel member if you can afford to do so and want to, as well as any other things you can do to help support the channel. Thank you so much everybody, have a lovely day, bye bye.